2020 was a year characterized by disappointment. Unless you have an introverted personality like me, being rendered into self-isolation can take an emotional toll on you. Compounding this disappointment was the release of Cyberpunk 2077, the highly anticipated, open-world, role-playing video game of the dark future. The issues with Cyberpunk have been discussed in great detail. The main ones include broken and missing features, a world that feels empty and lifeless, with NPCs that don't react to anything you're doing, a wanted system that feels like it was cobbled together at the last minute, a lack of meaningful choice and consequence, despite the fact that the game was first and foremost marketed as an RPG, and endless bugs and glitches. No one was more excited for Cyberpunk than I was. My imagination ran wild with all of the amazing features it was going to have, its groundbreaking story branching off into multiple paths and narratives, and its replay value that would encourage players to experiment with different playstyles. The contributing factors to the faith I placed in Cyberpunk's potential to redefine gaming as we know it were its developers' track record of consumer-friendly business practices, and more importantly, my relationship to The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, into which I've sunk almost 500 hours.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
The Witcher 3 has garnered a reputation among the gaming community for qualifying as one of the greatest RPGs of all time, rivaling games like Skyrim and Mass Effect. When Cyberpunk finally released, I was disappointed by its poor performance on my original Xbox One, but I was in denial of its failure to fulfill my expectations. I nonetheless decided to play a slightly upgraded version of it on my brother's PlayStation 4 Pro. After spending 12 hours with it, I abandoned it and found myself in gaming limbo. I needed to invest my time into something. That's when I developed an interest in ZeniMax Online's The Elder Scrolls Online. Now, ESO is far from a bad game. It's kept me entertained for as long as it's needed to. But ESO's rather generic single-player elements cannot scratch an itch that Cyberpunk was supposed to scratch, and that Witcher 3 has always scratched. So I took a break from ESO to replay through the Witcher 3's Hearts of Stone DLC a third time, and I found myself strangely enjoying it like it was the first time I played it. A 6-year-old game provided me with hundreds of hours more satisfaction and contentment than 12 hours of the novel Cyberpunk. And just like that, I found myself falling in love with The Witcher 3 all over again. The launch of Cyberpunk 2077 was profoundly disappointing, but it taught me an important lesson. Never assume that a company like CD Projekt Red can do no wrong, and that every product marketed by a large corporation should be subject to skepticism until it's been released and vigorously reviewed. I could spend hours identifying the characteristics that make Witcher 3 a superior piece of art to Cyberpunk. Instead, I wanted to illustrate that compared to Cyberpunk, inherent to Witcher 3 is what I call a self-restorative quality. This means that it can be played for hundreds of hours yet retains its novelty and subjective sense of enjoyment, like a song you can listen to hundreds of times yet never grow tired of. In addition, players don't have to force themselves to enjoy it if they've already consumed the majority of the content. The enjoyment comes to them naturally, regardless of the number of times they've played it. You know, it's funny, but every December my family and I watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I'm sure you've seen it before. We've watched it dozens of times, and it always manages to make us laugh. Something about Clark's emotional breakdown or Cousin Eddie's sewage disposal has an incredible amount of comedic depth. There hasn't been a family comedy film quite like Christmas Vacation since its release 32 years ago. And unlike Christmas Vacation 2, which isn't remembered by anyone, Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be remembered for all of the wrong reasons. A silver lining is that Cyberpunk's failures only reinforce how special The Witcher 3 was, and still is. To be clear, I am neither suggesting that The Witcher 3 is the greatest video game ever created, nor that everything about Cyberpunk is disastrous. The point I'm illustrating is that you can't replicate perfection. From 2016 to 2020, I convinced myself that Cyberpunk was going to become the next Witcher 3, and that its chances for failure were virtually non-existent. But the magic of Witcher 3 can never be recaptured, not even by the same studio that developed it. I truly believe that we will never see another game like Witcher 3 in our lifetimes. It would take a tremendous amount of persuasion to convince me otherwise. At the very least, Cyberpunk will evolve into a much higher quality product over time. For now, it's just mediocre, and you know what? That's okay. Life goes on, and disappointments are left in the past. But I encourage anyone watching this video to pursue the activities, relationships, or pieces of art that are self-restorative, and provide you with endless enjoyment and satisfaction, because that's where true happiness can be found. Hello everyone, thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. If you found value in what I had to say, consider leaving a like and subscribing. Your feedback goes a long way in motivating me to produce additional videos like this one. This has been Mark, signing out.